If you look at the African continent today, we have several conflicts going on. You can count many countries: um, Sudan, South Sudan, Somalia, Cameroon, Ethiopia, to some degree, Egypt. And then in Western Africa, you have insurgencies like the Boko Haram. In Mozambique, we have another ISIS affiliate. I can't count them. We literally have some form of conflict in 39 countries in Africa. These conflicts are bred by legitimate concerns in community and society. Those who create this kind of disobedience to the leaders, to the current crop of African leaders, are then joined by other people who want to promote other philosophies and other ambitions. It could be religion, it could be ethnicity, it could be simple plundering public wealth. So I think the problem that we have today is Ubuntu has been exercised properly by President Mandela, and President Mandela is probably one of the few leaders in Africa who only served one term and said, enough is enough. He gave in and he left. He could have been an important example to African leaders. And of course, after they leave the presidency, these former presidents could have tremendous influence in shaping the morality of society, in shaping the kind of progressive society that we have through the speech they make, through the kind of lives they live. Unfortunately, this is not the case. Most African leaders actually never survive after they leave office. Either they are in jail or they are killed. Only we have only very few African leaders who have exercised that, and these are the ones that have been awarded by the Mo Ibrahim Foundation. That foundation now couldn't even find African leaders to give its prizes because of their successful achievement of the kind of indicators that the foundation sets for the prize it provides. So what you can see today is African leaders are in crisis, and that's why the continent is also in crisis. We talk about the debt crisis, we talk about Western colonialism, we talk about the Chinese invasion of Africa. So we're not even independent even today. That's why we talked about neocolonialism. And now, of course, because of globalization, the kind of African identity is perishing. But as you said, in communities, in rural communities, which are not even in the reach of their local presidents, still these cultures flourish. These cultures function because they don't have any support from anywhere, including their own governments. And therefore, they have to survive on their own. To be able to survive, they use these traditional indigenous governance systems to be able to go on. I did a study for the African Development Bank on indigenous peoples of Africa. We have about 50 million indigenous people. And of course, the African Development Bank was a bit concerned when it finances big projects like roads, railways, dams, and everything. These indigenous people are left out. Their land is taken away, or probably when a dam is built, the land is filled with water without their consensus. And therefore, in that study, what I have found out that people are just living the way they have been living probably 2,000 years ago. These indigenous systems are still capable of working this. But the problem is the kind of adaptive strategies they have, for example, to manage climate change, are not sufficient today because the problems are not the problems that existed 2,000 or 1,000 years ago. Now they're more complex. The resources are being taken by other people. Governments are putting pressures on their resources. Their trees are being cut for sale by corporations. Their minerals have been taken out and sold, for which they don't benefit anything. Even our wildlife parks have very little participation of local communities and provide little benefit to local communities. And traditionally, wildlife and human beings have lived together in harmony, maintaining our environment. So when it comes to African cities, this is completely lost. In fact, what makes African cities more popular is their crime. Lagos, Johannesburg, Nairobi, Addis Ababa, all these have become breeding grounds for criminals in the African continent. This shows you that the kind of community kinship, the community oneness, and the kind of community rootedness in certain cultures has been completely dissipated to a point that it's disappearing. We're developing a new culture of looting, a new culture of theft, a new culture of corruption within these major cities. And these major cities are the source of our politicians. And once these politicians are there, we see this embarrassing situation in which elections are rigged, in which people are killed on broad daylight by government forces for simply undertaking issues that are in the constitution of these countries, namely free speech, freedom of association. We saw what happened in Senegal recently, what's really happening in Ethiopia. These political crises that are coming are basically because African leaders are not up to it anymore. So when we talk about leadership, it's not just a question of the one person that becomes the president. She or he are not the only ones. It's the team that comes with it. And then there are supporting technocratic and bureaucratic machinery that comes behind this leadership that are benefiting from the system that creates all this havoc. So, in a sense, it's not just African leaders that can change this. It's a change that should take place in a kind of a cultural revolution to go back to where we were, to learn from our past history, and also to develop the necessary literature and teach our young people that history so that when they grow up, they would be part and parcel of that community that's going to emerge.